Hi everyone, LiberAnarchy here. I recently finished watching the GOP debate, and I was pummeled with all sorts of rhetorical tricks and word games, but it is, after all, a political debate. I expect nothing less. Then I come onto YouTube, and I see this video from VFX. But, of course, this is VFX, so what do I expect? Actually, I saw Bionic Dance doing a response to him. I will not do a response to him because VFX is not worth it. This is not a person who will listen to opposing views and consider responses and rethink opinions that are clearly incorrect, and perhaps justify his opinions when people point out the fallacies. No. This is a guy who seriously argues, you know that God exists. That's one of his arguments. But again, this is PCS, poster boy for creationist stupidity. Yeah, you have to remember all his shenanigans. I'm not even going to list them all because, yeah, he's famous around here for not just stupidity, but for dishonesty and scams and e-begging and false DMCAs and lying. I mean, this guy is the spitting image of a YouTube scumbag. There is absolutely no justification for what he does, ever. But I will link you to the video in the description. Apparently, atheists know God exists, according to him, and hate God, and hate theists. Oh, yeah. That makes so much sense. Oh, and on this note, somebody I recently subscribed to, and who recently subscribed to me, thanks very much. Maybe he's unsubscribed now, I don't know. He sent me a PM, or perhaps it's a she. A person up in Canada, forget your screen name, sorry, asked me what I think of atheists. Well, what do I think of atheists? Gosh, well, what do I think of people? Yeah, I can point to you atheists on YouTube who I think are scumbags. I'm not going to say which ones I think are scumbags because that would just cause YouTube drama. However, there are a great many atheists, many more atheists, who I think are fine, upstanding people. I've run into atheists who are very intellectual. I've run into atheists who are just like screw intellectual pursuits. I feel like video games and beer and music and having a good time. And I'm not going to argue over something that probably doesn't exist, and I'm not going to care. That's cool. I mean, asking me what do I think of atheists is like saying, what do I think of slot car enthusiasts? I mean, people are people. You're going to get good and bad, smart, stupid, extroverted, introverted. You're going to get every kind of person under this particular banner. So, and are there crazy atheists? Oh, sure. There's a group down here, I think they're called Black Atheists of Atlanta or something like that, and the Atheist Experience has talked about them a little bit, but yeah, they're a little weird. Are there atheists who do want to say get rid of all the theists, as in kill all theists, or make all religion illegal? Well, sure, yeah, I mean, you're gonna get that kind of thing everywhere. I met somebody in a chat room. I wouldn't know if they have a YouTube account or not, but I met somebody in a chat room who thinks of persecuting people of any religion really as the government just protecting itself from threats. I mean, yeah. I mean, I mean, so you do get really screwball people, but on the whole, people are people. I mean, you can have good and bad, and most atheists are pretty reasonable people. Most atheists are pretty nice people. I've never had a problem with, like, I don't know, a group of atheists harassing me or something. I have had problems with YouTube fundamentalists. Um, or at least I've had problems with people claiming to be fundamentalists. They could have been trolls who may or may not have any religious beliefs, but yeah. But sure, I've gotten the occasional, I've had a few channels here on YouTube. Some because I've just changed my name, but a couple because false DMCA. I mean that's YouTube. YouTube is full of this basically, and yeah. So yeah, that's what I think of atheists, and that's basically the same opinion I have of theists of all stripes. I mean, talk to me about the pagan community. I've run into pagans, some pagans who are absolutely bad shit, other pagans who seem pretty reasonable. That that I suppose sitting down in a philosophical discussion, we're not going to agree with each other, or maybe with politics, we're not going to agree with one another. However, they're more interested in growing a garden or making herbal remedies at home, or some other thing that has some level of practicality to it. Maybe they're collecting rocks or something like that. I mean, hell, I'm growing mushrooms, not that kind of mushrooms. They're just shiitake mushrooms. I ordered a T-shirt from Cafe Press with morels on it. I love morels, but yeah, I mean, but stuff that's oriented toward reality, even if belief in God doesn't necessarily jive with your reality. And then I've met pagans who are off, like, they believe they're fighting astral battles every single night, and they're super important, and they're fighting to save the earth from something. And this isn't to say that people who do have some sort of magical practice are all insane. You have people that can sit down and talk about the idea that it can be all entirely psychological. And you have some occultists that do believe it is entirely psychological. You have some Wiccans who believe that we are our own gods or goddesses, and the god and the goddess are really expressions of the internal masculine and feminine, for example. And you have other Wiccans who believe in two distinct deities, and other Wiccans who are monotheists, who think that the divine God expresses itself with different faces, because we cannot understand it, the whole thing. So for us, the divine puts on one face for one aspect for whatever purpose. I mean, and there are many, many, many more opinions, but even somebody who lights candles and maybe holds crystals to meditate and burns sage and sprays rose water and chants mantras. Hello. Yeah, I mean, that would be me occasionally. And I do collect rocks and crystals, thank you very much. Call me a fluff bunny. Woo! Call me a crystal waver. Whatever. But, people who do that can also sit down and just have a conversation, and who have real world pursuits. That cool. These are perfectly fine people. But then, of course, you get the lunatics. And you get the con artists. You get people who are like, I was Vlad the Impaler in a past life, and I have all these powers, and I can give them to you. You just have to have sex with me in order to gain my powers. Yeah, you meet some really unscrupulous people, and you meet some really stupid people. Excuse me. Okay. So, yeah. So people are people. I think the same thing about atheists as I think about any other people. I mean, yeah. And yes, you can be an atheist and be highly irrational. I don't see very many irrational atheists, but yeah, it can happen. There are people who are just they are atheists, but they're not rational people. It's not based in, gosh, I don't see the evidence. It's based in, I'm an angry person, and those Christians treated me badly. So, but again, this isn't the main line. Yeah. But I mean, you get that everywhere. You get, like, in the pagan community, you run into people who are pagans because they're not Christians. That is the rationale. You run into people who are pagans because Christians persecuted people. That's it. Yeah. You run into a lot of people who don't get that you can just reserve judgment for a while. Okay. And like, okay, pantheists. You run into pantheists who are very philosophical. You run into pantheists that are more like myself that are like, well, okay. I'm not very philosophical, but I don't have this desire to convert anybody. I there would be people who would call me a fluff bunny because I base it in there'd be people who would call me out of my mind. And I would not be insulted necessarily because I could be out of my mind. And I'm sure there's not many pantheists around, at least not on YouTube anyway, but I'm sure you'll run into pantheists who are just stupid. Or just like, well, I think God is everything because I like nature. So I think that God is nature, which is everything except for technology. I don't like technology because it like harms the environment. I guess that would be more a stupid primitivist, but yeah. Boy. Conspiracy theorists. They're a fun bunch. Wake up, people. If you don't believe in... Okay, if you're not an anti-vaxxer who believes in the 9/11 conspiracy theory, you need to wake up. It's not just because you've examined both sides of the story and you've seen flaws with the conspiracy side and you know that having a conspiracy as huge as the 9/11 conspiracy would have to be would be a bitch to maintain. No. It's because we're all asleep and we need to wake up. And the solution to this is do you wake up, people? Wake up, people! Wake up! Don't drink the Kool-Aid! Wake up, people! And this isn't to say that there haven't been conspiracies in the past. Oh, there have been lots and lots and lots of conspiracies. From the assassination of Julius Caesar to Watergate to the Whitewater real estate scandal that the Clintons were involved with. Good gracious. Conspiracies do happen. But Yeah. But if you're going to be a conspiracy theorist, I, please at least, justify what you're thinking and don't just defend it by saying, "Wake up, people! Wake up, people! I'm really irritated because everybody wants to stay asleep, people!" It's like, I'm telling you the truth. Gorilla 199. Oh my god. If you ever want a really sad laugh, in a way, I feel for the guy. Poor guy. I mean, yes, the system is stacked against the common man, okay? It is stacked against me. And I will likely never be president. That would be. And it's just not even in the cards, okay? People in the political arena were usually born into money and were sort of groomed for the political arena, and we do have a two-party system that makes it exceedingly difficult for third parties to have any chance in any sort of national elections. Occasionally you'll get a libertarian in the House or the Senate, or you'll get a libertarian governor. That's pretty much as high as a libertarian or a green or a reform or a socialist or any of these other, the constitutional party, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of weird little political parties, but, they're never going to be president. Yeah, the system is stacked against us. Yes, taxes are a vote buying system. Vote for me and I'll give tax breaks to this demographic and that demographic and that demographic. Yes, taxes are a vote buying system. Yes, all greedy, corrupt corporations and excellent have to do is, form super committees and pay lobbyists and da 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 da, give politicians gifts, because they're not bribes, they're gifts, right? Da 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 da. And campaign contribution reform, McCain-Feingold, I believe it is. Yeah, that was not written to reform anything. It just means that I, as an individual, could not donate more than $2,500 to an individual candidate. Not that I would ever give money to a politician. I mean, ugh. Yeah. So in a way, I do feel for conspiracy theorists, and yes, there have been conspiracies. WorldCom, Enron, yeah, people conspire, but but conspiracy theorists, the really kooky ones that I'm talking about, who are talking about a new world order. Of course, there are people vying for power, whether they're secret societies or doing it in the open. There are many, many, many factions and individuals vying for as much power as they can possibly grab, and if it meant taking over the world, they would do it. But you have so many rival factions vying for all this power, it's not very feasible to think that one entity is going to take over the world. Okay? And things like the Federal Reserve, that is all kinds of shady. I mean, you don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to know that that's shady stuff. However, connecting it with reptilians or a Fourth Reich, you don't even need to go there, okay? I would, for that, I'd suggest looking up the concept of sound money. I would suggest going to the Ludwig von Mises Institute, looking into Austrian economics, and because they have a lot of bad things about the Federal Reserve and how it causes artificial boom and bust cycles, how it devalues the currency through quantitative easing, i.e., printing more money. Yeah. Yeah. There is a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. It does. So it is shady, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's some, one giant secret group that is somehow based on another planet or working for aliens or working toward a Fourth Reich or or something of that nature that made the Federal Reserve so later on in the year 2012 they could cause a massive collapse and I mean the savings and loan bubble. Yeah, yeah, I mean bad banking practices and the Federal Reserve contributed to all of that, but I think it's ridiculous to suggest that people, some sort of power elite in the 1900s or the 1800s, in conjunction with other power elite groups, are somehow or were somehow planning this way back when, because they would be dead by now. Okay, and yes, I get that politics is a lot of one hand washing the other. I get that it's political corruption. Okay, I just watched the GOP debate. I get that it is political corruption. um, even the word games. Uh, Rick Santorum characterized opposing SOPA as supporting an internet where you're allowing everyone to trample the rights of everyone else. Yeah, that's called straw man. Yeah, so I get that politics is a very dirty business. I get that there are plans within plans. Yeah, I get that these Republicans aren't even Christian. They'll legislate like they are, unfortunately. But since evangelicals vote, they will pretend to be at least somewhat evangelical. Now, what their own personal beliefs are, I don't know. I would suspect that it is that the ends justify the means, and not just with Republicans, of course. And, yeah, so I get that politics is corrupt. It's just real conspiracies are not neat and tidy. The skeptic, oh, what's his name? Michael Shermer, in The Believing Brain, he gave two examples of how actual conspiracies work and how messy they are. One was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The other was the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And go ahead and just Google, okay? I'm not going to run through all this. I assume, I would hope that I have smart subscribers. I think that I do. So look at those conspiracies and how they went down. They were messy. They weren't neat and tidy. Yeah. No. And I was thinking about doing a video about how conspiracy theorists hurt the liberty movement, because when Judge Annette, no, not that's a, oh, fuck me, I'm all discombobulated here. Okay, when Judge Napolitano talks about sound money, bringing us back to the gold standard, he's not talking about David Icke's reptilians or a Zionist conspiracy or anything like that. He believes we should go back to a gold standard. Google sound money and you can study that issue. Okay, same with Ron Paul. Ron Paul is for ending the Fed. No matter what, whether or not you think we should end the Fed, even if to you the Fed is just those people who raise and lower interest rates sometimes, I mean, you can go ahead and Google it and study it, and unfortunately, what happens is people like Alex Jones and I don't know if David Icke and Jim Mars and Richard C. Hoagland talk about ending the Fed, but I know Alex Jones does, and he'll mix that actual real issue with anti-vaxxer stuff and stuff about fluoride in the water making us all passive. Well, I guess he's not drinking fluorinated water. He never had fluorinated water. He's like, oh boy, I don't know what's in his water. But, and I'm not against passion, but yeah. Okay, or another issue. The issue of votes in Iowa having disappeared. There are people who think that votes for Ron Paul in Iowa were taken away intentionally. There are people who think voter fraud happened. Now there's a story that come out that said, well, Romney may not have actually won Iowa. It may have been Santorum. Okay. Alex Jones takes this to mean there's these hideous evil powers that be, the Skull and Bones, the Bohemian Grove, the Illuminati, all this, who do not want Ron Paul to win, so they orchestrate voter fraud in Iowa, and they also control both arms of the media. Forget that Ted Turner runs CNN, is very liberal, and Rupert Murdoch, who runs Fox News, is conservative, and forget MSNBC, and they have their bias, and Wall Street Journal, and say like, okay, two other newspapers, Washington Times, Washington Post. Yes, I mean, yes, they have their biases, and many times mainstream media drops the ball, but Alex Jones and people like him think that every bit of mainstream media is in the pocket of the federal government and the corporations, the whole military-industrial complex, who are run by these secret societies. How the fuck are you going to orchestrate all this? I'm sorry, how the fuck are you going to orchestrate all this? It defies logic, okay? In this huge, complex global conspiracy orchestrated global fraud in Iowa. There may have been voter fraud in Iowa, and if there was, that's a bad thing. Although voting, it's just changing the color of the whip. I think voting for Ron Paul may lessen the sting of the whip, but changing the color of the whip. I don't like the government. Yeah. And he's taking calls by people saying, I'm from Iowa. Now, granted, you could look at the area code. If you know what the Iowa area code is, you can look at, or if you know Iowa area codes, you can look at those and say, okay, you really are from Iowa. But even people from Iowa can lie. People call, like, Coast to Coast AM, the show that Art Bell used to host, and Art Bell also used to have a show called Dreamland. I still listen to Coast AM. I'm a Streamlink member. They don't call it Streamlink anymore. I don't know what they call it. Forgot. I have the new Coast to Coast app. I listen to the show. I enjoy the show. But you have people who call these shows that crazy people that make stuff up just for fun, and people that they're not off the wall crazy, and they're not making shit up, but they're not necessarily right either. You might have a person who sees, say, you might have a person that sees a white windowless truck drive away from a polling booth, and they may just automatically conclude, oh, it must be Ron Paul votes being chipped away. And it's not that they're stupid people. I mean, Ron Paul hasn't gotten the greatest treatment by the media. In fact, even today in the GOP, or tonight in the GOP debate, Grand Old Party, by the way, that's what it stands for. You have when the moderator, forgot his name, failed to ask Ron Paul about his opinion on abortion, you had the audience getting real rowdy, oh, Ron Paul, Ron Paul, Ron Paul, because he just was overlooked. And then the moderator, okay, Ron Paul, you want to go? Yeah. Okay. Now, so yeah, the media hasn't been very nice to him, but you could have somebody that just sees something like that and just assumes something and then calls Alex Jones and says, hey, or calls Coast to Coast and says, hey, they're taking Ron Paul's votes away, man. It's totally a conspiracy, man. And run off at the mouth. And then Alex Jones, of course, just feeds into it, and that's what he does. Um, and it sounds like he just takes anyone. I mean, Coast to Coast just takes anyone. But my point is, people call these shows many times just for fun. Sometimes people call them making shit up. There was a person who was one of the time travelers. It wasn't Wave Rider. It was the one who claimed to come, who claimed to be looking for a certain type of IBM computer because he somehow overshot or undershot traveling back in time, and he was looking for an IBM computer from the 70s. Yeah, it was that time traveler, and some schmuck called and said, of course, I don't think that he was actually a time traveler. An IBM computer from the 70s is going to save the future, right? Okay. Anyway, so you have that guy on, and you have somebody calling the show claiming to be a time traveling cop, some kind of time cop from the future. Because, just because they're having fun. And I'm sure many listeners are laughing. Some listeners might be buying into the whole thing. But the whole thing is just fun. There are guests that I've sensed are just doing this because they're having fun. They really don't believe in whatever they're saying. Interesting. Jason the Horse. Look him up. He was a guest, and I think I really think he's a fantastic example of otherkin. Although he is more into he believes that he has a horse soul, and I'm more into the just psychology, the whole psychological meaning. Like, for whatever reason, I identify differently than most people do. Maybe I am crazy, I don't know, but he and I look at it differently. But Jason the Horse has he's a real interesting guy, and he's a pretty rational guy as spiritually based otherkin go. Now, having said that, with a topic like that, people are going to call and make shit up. You know it. It's inevitable. I'm sorry. So yeah. And, returning to the callers and Alex Jones, he doesn't ask the callers questions like, did you read an article? Where did you read it? I.e., was it in USA Today, or was it in The Onion? Of course, he has this site called Prison Planet, and it's funny how he does not trust any of the mainstream media, yet he will cite sources from the mainstream media when they are there, and when they're not there, it's because they're suppressed, and when they are there, it's because you need to wake up. And it like, he will talk about SOPA and PIPA, real things. And the other recent National Security Act, I forget exactly what it's called, and I'm sorry that I do, because I would like people to look that up, because it's pretty outrageous. Um, he'll talk about those things, but then he'll run off about secret societies. Okay, Skull and Bones. So you have a bunch of elitist fucks over at Yale. Like their parents are really rich, and they know that they've been groomed to be. They know that they're really rich, and they're kind of being groomed to be elite because they're really rich. So you got some weird fucks that just mess around with ritual and death imagery and all this shit. What the fuck do I care? They're frat boys. They probably fucking paddle each other and fucking get drunk and whatever. You know? I mean, I'm not gonna take the Skull and Bones seriously. Uh, these okay, the conspiracy theories about the government getting, orchestrating things such that they can declare martial law. They don't need to orchestrate anything to declare anything. And they don't even need to declare fucking martial law. They're the fucking government, and they are wildly corrupt, and they will just make fucking laws. Recently here in Georgia, there was a guy who in our legislature who wanted to make it illegal to wear pajamas in the grocery store. Real thing. Yep. Saw it on the local news. Some schmuck decides that I don't know, he wants to protect people from seeing pajamas or protect people from being laughed at or something. I mean, these people unfortunately can just make laws. Yes, there are checks and balances, but look how well those have worked. Yeah, so they don't need to orchestrate anything to plan anything. They just do what they want. All, all they need to do to have martial law, and they wouldn't even call it martial law, is just to make this law, and then this law, and then this law, and then this law, and then this law. Okay, then, and eventually we're there. I mean, why waste money power and manpower and production power on plots that you don't even need? Of course, then again, they do waste all this money power and manpower on the drug war, don't they? But then they make lots of money from it. But that's a different topic. It's a related topic, but it's a different topic. But that's just it. They didn't need to orchestrate some war, or well, you could say, oh well, they orchestrated the war on drugs. Well, they didn't need to like invent drugs and or something. No, they just said these are illegal. We're prohibiting marijuana, we're prohibiting cocaine, we're prohibiting heroin, we're prohibiting speed, or no. These are all illegal. These are all contraband, right? And now what we're going to do is just make laws to say mandatory sentencing even for innocuous shit like marijuana. Fucking they now the government all they need to do is say, well, we want to bust down your door just because of you might be possessing drugs. They don't need to make some big, long, elaborate thing such that they will suddenly officially be able to completely beat down your door and kill your fucking family and shoot your dog. All they need to do is say, we think that you have drugs, and then they'll fucking do it. And unfortunately, they may get away with it. However, as it stands now, we have cameras. However, police are actually, unfortunately, cracking down and trying to make these cameras illegal. Again, it's not some weird, elaborate plot where they're trying to, like, put chips in cameras that track people. No, they're just trying to make cameras illegal for, various police districts will try to make it illegal for citizens to film cops. That's all they have to do. The government has a ridiculous amount of power. All they need to do is make fucking laws. They don't need to, like, sit here and orchestrate 10, 15, 100 years down the road and make up a war in order to declare anything. They just declare it. Unfortunately, they do make up these words, but it's not like, Islamic terrorists don't exist. They do. Unfortunately. Now I just think I'm in Ron Paul's camp, actually. Christopher Hitchens and I would disagree. Like, okay, gross polluted language. When the United States government, because I had nothing to do with this, I am not my government. Even if I vote, I'm just voting for a new master. I know that I am not my government. I am not actually consenting to be governed by voting. I understand that. So I do apologize for saying we. That is disgusting, polluted language that I was drilled to use by the state. Okay. So when the United States government went into Iran and overthrew the Shah, look what it got replaced with. Ooh. Great job, United States. Yeah. And yeah, at the end of World War I, when we had a whole bunch of countries interfering, carving up the Middle East, that created a big mess. Yeah. Okay, but I'm not gonna get, I don't know a whole hell of a lot about Mideastern politics, so I'm not gonna get too far into that. But yeah, so where was it? Yeah, conspiracies, while they do happen, they are messy and not nice and neat, and I believe that conspiracy theorists do a great disservice to the liberty movement because they mix real stories with complete bullshit. There hasn't been mercury in the vaccines since something like 1950 or something like that. I mean, or maybe it was a little bit later, but the point is that they don't put mercury in vaccines anymore. Yeah. So I'm saying a lot. I should end this video. I don't know why YouTube is giving me any more than fucking 10 minutes. I have no fucking clue why. And nobody's gonna watch this, and I don't blame anybody for not watching this. But yeah, so I'd really hate to see, like, people, maybe Alex Jones talks about a couple of rotten bills that have passed, or maybe that have not passed. Maybe a bill was killed and he's just talking about it like it hasn't been killed or something. Yeah. Oh, but then he goes into his whole anti-vaxxer rant, and he goes into some rant about an atheist conspiracy trying to make everybody an atheist because atheists don't have God, therefore they don't have morals, therefore they're communists, and because they all believe that the ends justify the means, they want to indoctrinate all our children, not your children and my children. I don't even have children, for goodness sakes, but our children. Suddenly, children become collectively owned. Our children. He's doing the same thing as the government. And many libertarians have been atheists. Murray in Rothbard and Rand Bertrand Russell, all atheists. So, the libertarian movement is something that is very hospitable to atheists, and I shudder to see very, very dyed-in-the-wool Christians. They don't even have to be fundamentalists, but very dyed-in-the-wool Christians characterizing the libertarian movement as something that is anti-atheist, because it is not. What a libertarian will not do is try to make you not religious, or try to make you religious. That's your call. It's not my call. That's your brain. You're responsible for your own choices. I'm not. You are. So what happens is people who are atheists or agnostics or pagans or some other thing, they get this idea that libertarians, people who maybe they're in local militias and maybe they're, gun owners and they're very safe about it and so on and so forth, others who would be interested in the liberty movement, for maybe they want to decriminalize marijuana, or maybe they want to avoid having some sort of national law that says gay people cannot get married, or maybe they're just sick of being taxed to death, or maybe they want to end the Fed, for any number of reasons. Maybe they want to get rid of, maybe they live in a dry county and they want to get rid of these stupid laws that say you cannot buy alcohol on Sunday. That recently happened in my county. Thank goodness, because hey, there's no good reason there is no good reason to make alcohol illegal to buy on a Sunday. An alcoholic is going to prepare for that and keep killing themselves on Sunday. People like me who are social drinkers are just going to be told, oh, I'm sorry, it's Sunday, we can't sell alcohol. Oh, well, that sucks. Iced tea then. So basically, they're preventing me from having a drink on Sunday, on the rare occasion that I happen to feel like one, because it's apparently their Sabbath. What would Jesus do? Yeah, that's called. I mean, if they want to be Old Testament and all that, and try to stop people from doing things on the quote Sabbath, why doesn't their Sabbath start on Friday night? Just saying. And go into Saturday night. I don't know. These people aren't consistent, that's why. Most of us are inconsistent, but good God, man! It's like, good God, your people are horribly inconsistent. Whatever. Right, so, you have, I think that people who are non-religious, or they just are very liberal about the religion, or just have a very different religion than most, might be very interested in the liberty movement for a whole host of reasons. Maybe they're pro-gun, maybe they're anti-death penalty. But then they see these people who characterize the government as some sort of atheist conspiracy, and characterize the liberty movement as something very inhospitable toward atheism, and you're losing your numbers, dude. I mean, if I was completely ignorant about libertarians, and I believed what Alex Jones was saying, or some of the Tea Partiers holding up signs saying America is a Christian nation, I'd be like, fuck libertarians. They're ignorant, wacky, fundamentalist fucktards. Fuck you people. Fuck you. Seriously, fuck you. Or Stefan Molyneux. He's an atheist. Now, he's a market anarchist, and many libertarians are minarchists, but the point is, he's an atheist, and he's been doing a lot for the liberty movement. He runs on donations. Now, not to say he e-begs, he writes books. And if you like his books, you can pay him. If you think what he does has value, because, value is subjective, you can donate to him. Okay? And he has his radio show and his YouTube channel, but, whatever you think of him, he's one of these people that, he's sort of a figurehead in the liberty movement. So, and he's an atheist. So, we're not hostile to atheists. We're just not going to tell you what to believe, and we're not going to tell the religious people, hey man, quit being religious. Now, what we are going to do is speak our minds. And we're going to let other people speak their minds. How the fuck did I get on this? I'll link the stupid Venom Fang X video down here. And yes, there are libertarians who think that religion does harm and would speak out against religion, but not against religious people's prerogative to be religious. And there's a reason I'm not saying right, and that's because, well, define a right. Well, human rights. Well, I agree with human rights in that I agree with I agree with the sentiment that most people are saying when they say human rights. However, what is a right? First, let's define what a right is, and then we can go from there. Because some people, they just, as soon as if they're arguing for something, suddenly they start finding all these rights that people have. Right to health care, right given by the government. Health care is a euphemism, by the way, just saying. But, right to not be offended. Right to get married. Now, don't get me wrong. I support people having health care. I support consenting adults of any gender or sexual orientation being able to marry any other consenting adults of any sexual or gender orientation, and any number of adults. I support that. I support people who want to get married getting married. I want the government completely out of marriage. I don't even believe in, marriage licenses. What the fuck? Okay? Now, but it's not a right. Right to join the military, well, that's kind of odd, because then you kind of become property of the government. You lose a lot of rights when you're in the military. As in constitutional rights. So, even people who are constitutionalists, sometimes they will just argue and they'll find rights that aren't even in the Constitution. Now, you could, I think, argue that a right to privacy is in the Fourth Amendment, unlawful search and seizure, but even then, it's not just right to privacy, like nobody can have a camera, but I've seen people argue that. Like a business can't even watch me with a camera or something because of the Fourth Amendment, says right to privacy. How does that even work? And even still, the Constitution, it was a good idea for its time. It really was. And I would love to live in a country that went by the Constitution, but how'd that work out? So yeah, I rather don't like the concept of right, because I have the right to be respected. I have the right to an attorney. Well, yes. And if you can't afford one, yeah, one will be provided for you by the state. But yeah, but that's, again, it's Miranda rights. But, even if you're a constitutionalist, and you believe that your rights come from the Constitution, or your rights come from Creator, and it's not even defined. We're not a Christian nation. They didn't say from Jesus. They didn't say from God. They didn't say from Yahweh, Jehovah, Elohim, any of these other names. It just said creator. And you had a lot of founders that were deists and Freemasons. And you had some founders that had no kind words for religion. You had other founders that were theists. So, but not a Christian agent. Creator could be anything. I kind of think of the universe as having created itself in a way. I mean, creator, shit, you could have somebody who thinks the universe was created by a peanut. If, whatever. So no, it's not a Christian nation just because the Declaration of Independence says creator in it. Fuck, those people are stupid. Fuck. Now, yeah, some theists really are genuinely just mind-numbingly, skull-crushingly, pathetically, embarrassingly stupid. But yeah, so this has just been my opinions about. This has been a whole bunch of opinions about shit, all kinds of shit. It started out though with Venom Fang X. Poster boy for creationist stupidity. Doo-doo-doo. Poster boy for YouTube shenanigans galore. Rap sheet a mile long, shouldn't even be on YouTube. False DMCAs, e-begging, charity fraud. Let's see, what else? Oh, lying and saying that he's gotten death threats from Muslims and oh god, let's see what he's done a lot. He's there's been several cases of him e-begging as well. So. Yeah. What a putz. I mean, seriously. What a putz. Yeah, I remember one time him saying his family was Jewish. Then I remember him way later saying that his family was atheist. Huh? Well, it's Venom Fang X. His latest video turd is down in the crotch bar. Well, let's just say, Venom, you're in the appropriate place. What a cunt. Seriously, you have to see this video. I mean, my god. Okay. So yeah. If you're part of the liberty movement, please, please, please make sure your arguments are logical and make sure that if you are putting forward a conspiracy theory that you are really working on getting your sources together and that you're not just taking any call from anybody who could be making anything up. And if you don't have sources, for goodness sakes, please don't just say because the story has been suppressed by the mainstream media. Ooh, okay. And for goodness sakes, please relinquish the argument that is, wake up, people, wake up, don't drink the Kool-Aid, people, wake up, wait, don't drink the Kool-Aid, wake up, people. And, when I talk to people, it's just like they want to stay asleep, man. I start telling people about what's going on, man, and they just roll their eyes because they want to stay asleep. How about, because you're talking about, how about because you're putting forward a theory that is kind of ridiculous and they've probably already heard it from several people. They maybe have seen it debunked, and they don't want to be rude and tell you that you're being stupid. Okay. Now I'm finished ranting, and I'm very sorry for running off like this. PCS's latest shit shingle down here. Alright. And above all, know thyself.